Welcome to part 3 of the Whaka 100 podcast for 2025. I'm your host, Richard Greer from Team CP. And in this podcast, we talk all about mental skills with Warwick Wood and connect with Emma Bateup, who is the only female finisher of the Whaka 100 miler for 2024. Team CP specialises in supporting riders to have an awesome Whaka 100. And this podcast is all part of that support for you and the event. Alongside this podcast, we deliver 3 weekly group Zwift sessions across the course of winter and personalised coaching support for the event. We've been working for the event for 6 to 7 years now, and over that time have built up an intimate knowledge of what it's required for all levels, from the fast ones looking to be competitive, all the way through to those that are just trying to see if they can complete the event. The objective of this podcast is get you to get you to the start line in the best possible shape so you can get out there and have an awesome day on the trails. So if you missed part 1 on training, jump back and check that out. Part 2 was a deep dive into sport nutrition with Marewa Sutherland. But today is all about dialing in your mental game, your mental toughness for training and race day. This one's going to be a goodie. So let's clip in and get amongst it with our first guest, Warwick Wood. Warwick is a sports psychologist and works with a number of different teams around the place. But Warwick, do you want to give us a quick intro about, I guess, your background, how long you've been doing this thing for, and what's some experience with athletes that you've had out there around the place?
Yeah, awesome. Well, firstly, thanks for having me, Richard. It's great to connect with you, and I always enjoy our conversations. I have a background like many, I think, in New Zealand. Tried probably every sport, and I was one of those people that I was okay at everything, but not really good at any of them. I found basketball kind of early high school age, and that became my thing. Okay. I grew quite a lot at that point. I'm not overly big, but that was pretty helpful. And I got to that point where I was playing kind of junior, underage rep level stuff, but got to the point where I realized I wasn't going to become a professional athlete, unfortunately, and so did the thing where I wanted to be involved in sport, naturally shifted into coaching, did an undergrad degree in coaching here in New Zealand. I went over to the US and I was an assistant coach on a college basketball team for a few years in Indiana, and it was during that time that I found myself just getting more interested in the psychology and the mindset around performance and well-being, as opposed to the unique kind of particular details of basketball. Even though I still love that sport, I'm a real sport junkie. So now I really enjoy getting to work in different environments as a mental skills trainer. My main job at the moment is lecturing sport and exercise psychology at Massey University, and then in and around that I do some applied work, working with the likes of High Performance Sport New Zealand, and at the moment my bigger contract is with New Zealand Cricket, supporting them. Yeah,
that's exciting. What a cool job. It's lots of different conversations to be had, and it must be pretty rewarding when you see things click with athletes to go, okay, and I had a big part of that.
Yeah, it is. It is a really rewarding job. It has its challenges, like every job. I always enjoy the connection side of things. I enjoy connecting with athletes and coaches. So there are the inevitable challenges when you see things not playing out the way that the athletes want. But then the flip side of that, of course, is you get to really enjoy those little moments where they get the objective outcomes they want in terms of wins or kind of the objective success. But there's also just those little moments sometimes too where, it's just a fist pump or some eye contact, and there's that moment of, maybe something you did contributed in a positive way, which is really nice.
Good. So our plan today is we're going to talk through some of the things, I guess, tips, tricks, but also hopefully some takeaways that you can, as an athlete lining up for the Whaka 100, whichever level, through to them from the miler through to the shorter distance events, that you can use both in training and also on race day, that you can hopefully end up being able to have that performance that you're after. So let's kick off with the training side of things. So I guess there's always a bit of hype and a bit of yeehaw, we've entered this event. So, and then to actually having to do the training, do you have any strategies to build that mental resilience to be able to just make, like, it's consistency is the key thing with training, but sometimes we don't necessarily want to. Sometimes it's cold. Sometimes I've worked too hard. I just can't be bothered. I've ridden my bike too much lately. So what are some things that we can I guess, maybe use to make sure that we do?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And firstly, congratulations to everyone that signed up for this event. I have never done it, but it looks like an incredible event to be part of. So I am quite envious of, I know it's stressful and I know it's triggering of nerves and anxiety, but I don't have anything on my race calendar at the moment. I do miss that kind of intensity that builds with those things. So well done to everyone for signing up. I think firstly, something I always try to encourage people to remember, and it's cliche, I'm almost loath to say it, but trying to shift from you have to do the training now to you get to do the training. And we can unpack that in so many different ways, whether it's, trying to be grateful for our health, or it's just the opportunity to kind of push ourselves and grow and develop. But I think that is a really helpful mindset shift that can be helpful for some, trying to shift from that I have to get out and train now to I get to go out and move my body and be active in this beautiful country that we have. So sometimes just that kind of fundamental shift can be quite helpful. Doing the work is a really important part of building that sense of trust that we can actually reach our goals. Some people will try to employ or engage that like rising to the occasion or fake it till you make it on the day, but we often know deep down if we haven't committed fully. So doing the work, logging it somehow, whether it's Strava, training diaries, etc. During the race, we will in some ways probably subconsciously reflect on things. So we want to have that sense of optimism that we have actually done the work, and there's real conviction there in that belief. And then I think finally, just trying to develop that mindset that we can do hard things. So when trainings have been hard, but you've managed to stick with it, making sure we reflect on that, even if it doesn't feel like this huge achievement at the time, physically doing that, but also psychologically reflecting on it. That's currency that's going to be a massive enhancer of performance.
Yeah, I like it, that currency. That's very good. That's what we're dealing in really here, aren't we? What about if we are in the thick of training? How do I push the reset button when we have that massive self-doubt on what you've actually signed up for? That self-doubt, can I actually do this? I'm not sure if this is actually right for me.
Yeah, it's such a common challenge, and I think it is really important to acknowledge that self-doubt will probably be a companion with you on this journey, and that's the case whether you're a novice or an Olympic athlete. That if we think of the more traditional approach to psychology or mental skills training, that the goal is to like remove all doubt. I think ideally we don't have doubt, but it's also I don't know if that's the best approach or the best pursuit that we're going to remove. We're going to remove all of it. So I think we often train almost with the hope that it will build confidence. And then when I'm confident, I won't have any doubt. When I don't have doubt, I won't feel anxious and I'll perform really well. But that happens sometimes. But if we reflect on most races, most big things we do in life, there's some element of doubt. So developing acceptance that it'll probably be there, there'll be that little voice, but establishing some strategies, some levers that we can pull that will be really helpful, as opposed to kind of like grappling with it and being frustrated that there is any doubt. So taking each day as it comes will hopefully provide some stability and some consistency. Writing things down, I think sometimes there's a fear that if we write down that we had a shitty training or that we didn't feel great today, that almost like strengthens that belief. But for most, it just helps us process that thought and then move on. It almost like ties a ribbon around the day. And if you can, in a genuine way, actually acknowledge some positive things, as I mentioned before, like training was pretty crappy today, but I stuck with it and I'm going to nail my recovery. So then you've acknowledged how things went, but also shift to a more positive focus. That can be quite helpful. So trying to acknowledge how things are going and then effectively kind of move forward.
Yeah, we do need some anxiety, don't we? We need some nerves, because otherwise you'll be so relaxed you don't even bother. You've got to do some for me, fear is the fantastic motivator. Like, make sure I actually get out there and do it, because I'm not sure if I can actually finish this thing. So I guess we want a little bit of that. We need to harness it, though, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. As you pointed out, if there's no anxiety or no stress, our focus is all over the place. We're probably not actually going to do the work, and it's that irony in life that the most important things to us are are also the most stressful at times as well. So signing up for these kinds of races, whatever they mean for us, whether we're trying to win it or we're trying to do a PB or just trying to finish, there is going to be the inevitable stress and anxiousness that comes with that. So as you say, trying to embrace that and kind of leverage it for training intensity and for enjoyment and getting a sense of like a deep sense of meaning from what you're doing can be really like that can add a whole nother layer to that whole experience.
Good. I hope that people are writing this stuff down because this is gold. I like it. I love this stuff. It's awesome work. What about this? For most of us, we're all in the juggle of life and family and work and training. How do we manage that whole juggle and actually try and be kind to ourselves at the same time? Like, have you got any tips or thoughts along those lines?
Yeah, it's another really good question and another challenge for most people, I think. I mean, my mind initially goes to just structuring, like thinking about how we can continue to improve how we're structuring our days, our weeks, the months leading in. And that should help with, like, that's not rocket science. I appreciate that. It should help with the obvious things of, like, how do I fit everything in terms of priorities, but also psychologically with that sense that you're doing the work. And then it allows us to be present in whatever it is that we're doing because we're not procrastinating, and it can allow us to almost like chunk our focus a little bit more. If you think about the times when you're studying and you've got an assignment or when you've got work to do in a weekend, and we have those moments of like we keep pushing it back. We're not fully relaxing, but we're not getting anything done either. So when we have that structure of okay, I'll move from this to this to this. So when we're having breakfast with the kids, we're present because then we know we're going for a ride. Then we're going to come back and get a little bit of work done. So it doesn't just help with getting the stuff done, but mentally it actually helps us shift our focus more effectively. I think really important to communicate with our family as well, particularly the times when we are getting stressed or anxious about it. And those are probably the times where it becomes the most difficult to communicate effectively. But when I think for most people, if we tell our partners that we're feeling really anxious about our preparation and I'm going to need to train a little bit harder this week or get out a little bit more, most people will be quite supportive if that is communicated really effectively. And then finally, just remembering that we're only human. So it's that constant weighing up of sorts around how much you can fit in but still recover from, and trying to let go of that pursuit of perfection in that regard almost. And I mean, there'll be people that are much better versed in training principles and things like that than me, but sometimes just the circumstances of life mean that I may need to miss this training session, and that's going to be the best thing for me based on how stressed I am at work, how stressed I am at home. And then there's other times where you need to lean in and just commit and get it done.
Yeah, I like it. I like that sort of leave perfection at the door, like actually just doing something, just do as best as you can do. And sometimes you just got to figure it out. It's not perfect, but at least it's something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so much sickness going around at the moment. Every year it feels like it's the worst it's been, and this year it's the same. But if you're feeling sick and you're thinking I've got to get this training done, it's that weighing up of, is that going to push me back another week, or do I need to actually recover and get myself in a better position to train hard the following week?
Yeah, good. Like it. So be where you are. Focus on what you should be focusing on now, rather than thinking about other stuff while you should be with the kids, etc. Nice. Let's talk a little bit more about the actual race day and the busyness of that. And this is where sort of things start to get real. We've done our training, we've done as best as we can, but now it's actually, how do I figure this race day out? So one of the biggest challenges around any event, it starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, and there's going to be a few thousand other people there. There's going to be loud music. There's going to be, it's time. And that's the time I've just got to push go. So how do you prevent getting caught up in that whole start line hype, not going out too fast and therefore blowing yourself up? Have you got any tricks or thoughts there? Is it breathing? What would you suggest that we work on to help that experience?
Yeah, I'd really encourage people to have a think about how you're going to do that, and it will look different for everyone. And we've all done it, right? And it's heartbreaking. I remember a marathon I did a couple of years ago, the first kilometer, beep. I looked down and I was so much faster than race pace. And you have that moment of like, shit, I've lit this candle like way too early. And it's, and you start to think about, okay, what does this mean? So it's really disappointing when that happens. So firstly, I always encourage people to have some kind of trigger or focus word that is really, really positive for them. If you think about the difference in mindset and likely outcomes of repeatedly telling yourself, don't go out too hot, don't go out too fast, versus repeatedly saying to ourselves a word like steady or calm or flow, like both things in theory are good, but if we're just constantly telling ourselves don't do something, it's almost that like negative kind of perspective, as opposed to having something that we've rehearsed. It almost becomes like a mantra. If it captures how we want to perform, how we want to compete, and how we want to feel, I think that can be really helpful. So coming up with some kind of word that really resonates with us, for me, it would be a word like flow or calm, and then practice and rehearse that.
Both at the start line, you've taking your bike off the back of the car, or you're heading into a tricky piece of trail, etc. Like actually, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in training rides, I mean, you might not be simulating the kind of intensity. Certainly, if it is like an intense training session, that might be a good time to kind of simulate that as well. I think it just makes you a little bit more likely to stay connected to it, to remember it when you are stressed, as well as that mental kind of search that we do when you feel stressed or you feel anxious. That you've gone out too fast, or before that happens, and then you're searching for like, okay, be confident or be calm, as opposed to having this thing that you've rehearsed and is going to put you in a mindset that should allow you to go out kind of on your race pace.
Yeah, good stuff. No, that's fantastic. And the other part of that start line piece and the whole event is that thing around expectations. Your expectations of yourself. This is what I want to achieve, and this is what I should achieve based on what I've done before or what I've trained to do. But then there's also the expectations of others as well. How do you set yourself up for success and trying to manage that? Because it can really kill the fun if we get sucked into that.
Yeah, it can, and that's something we really want to avoid, right? Like for most of us, this is something that we're doing that isn't our income. It's just something that we want to achieve the goals that we've set, but also have the experience that we want to have. So have a think about whose expectations actually matter to you, because at the end of the day, that should probably be quite a short list. Where you step back and like really think about it, not in a narcissistic kind of way, but more like whose views actually matter around this particular thing that I'm doing. So going back to purpose and things like that can be really helpful. I ran a marathon a few years ago, and I was telling a colleague about it on Monday. How was your weekend? I ran a marathon, and the first response was, "Did you win?" And I'm fairly certain that he was joking, that he didn't actually think I could have won a marathon that several thousand people were competing in. But there was just a little part of me that wondered if he was serious.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's those expectations that kind of like killed the joy, because for me it was finishing, it was doing a PB. So thinking about whose expectations, whose perspectives, views actually matter. And I think what we also, for many of us, can improve in is embracing the whole journey as being meaningful and being important. I think we've talked about this on previous pods, that like shit can happen, and it often will. Ideally it doesn't, but it sometimes does, and it always sucks when there's punctures or when we cramp. But it also doesn't mean that the whole experience was a waste. And I think that can just avoid that mindset of we get through all this training and then you've got this like one day to prove that it was all worth it. And this is where the success comes from, as opposed to gleaning all of the learnings and the growth and the fun and the connection from everything, both directly and indirectly. So being able to like let go of expectations in that way, or at least just dampen them down a little bit, not in a way of we don't take this isn't important, but it's just another part of the whole process that can be quite liberating and actually lead to better performance, which is somewhat counterintuitive sometimes.
I really like that, looking at it as a whole opposed to just this one moment in a day. I think that's one thing around these endurance events. We only often get maybe 1 or 2 or 3 races a year, whereas if you're playing rugby, you're playing every weekend. So if I muck it up this week, well, I've got another chance for next week. So that is challenging. But if you look at the whole I think that's really good. If you do muck it up, at least you've got a good story to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I don't want that to come across as like disingenuous, and it'll be really frustrating, of course. But just allowing yourself that space to feel frustrated, but then look back on the whole experience, and then as a performance tool, just trying to like let go a little bit of the grip that we hold around, I've got to get this PB, or I've got to get this outcome, as opposed to I'm going to go after it with real excitement and real optimism. And kind of see where I get.
Yeah, I like it. Let's just say we've hit the wall and there's a fair bit of cramp going on. It all gets pretty ugly. Can you talk us through any strategies for getting through those tough times when we just want to throw our bike off the trail into the bush and walk away?
Yeah, that's it's a great way of putting it. And I think sometimes it's really difficult to do. It's easy for me to say, but embracing that can be helpful, reminding yourself that you knew that it may get ugly, but that you're good with ugly. You can deal with ugly. You've done it in the past. It's probably going to be different shades of ugly for everyone, but embracing that can sometimes be quite helpful. This might sound a little bit contradictory to like the previous points around like staying present and things like that, but sometimes it can be helpful to at that point to start thinking about the finish line or what you're trying to achieve, or things that are really motivating or inspiring. Like for me, it might be thinking about seeing particular people at the finish line, dedicating the next kilometer to someone that's been really influential, really helpful. And then of course, just all the cliches of kind of breaking things up, whether it's a kilometer at a time, and kind of like doing that might give you that psychological space to come right, almost. If I think about my work with cricketers, for instance, it's, you can't score 100 runs quickly. You can only play what's in front of you, one ball at a time. And sometimes you might feel out of rhythm early on, but if you get too caught up in kind of what that may or may not mean later on in the day, then that pulls our attention away. So if we can come back to, okay, it's the next 500 meters, or it's the next kilometer, and then it's the next one, and then it's the next one.
Yeah. I like that. I think the worse it gets, the shorter your time frame becomes. It's just to that next tree or just to that next rock.
Yeah.
Like it's very small when it's really ugly, but then when you start to get better, you can open that out a little bit more. And I think knowing that good and like ugly and not ugly, not saying good or bad, but the tough times come and go in waves, don't they? Like it's not going to be like that all the time. You'll have good patches and bad patches, so you've got to just keep hanging in there. I like to think about the process, focusing on your pedal technique and have I had a drink lately, and some of those things that you can control in those horrible dark moments where you don't really want to be there anymore.
Yeah, I really like that, and very consistent with. I always like the idea of almost like diffusing the link between each moment. So just because we feel good at the start doesn't mean we're going to keep feeling good if we lose track of things like our nutrition or our race plans. And just because we don't feel amazing at the start, that doesn't mean it's not going to be our day as well. Yep. So again, coming back to your process and your plans.
Yeah, good stuff. What about recovery? What about after our training sessions? Is there anything, like we talk a lot about recovery and nutrition, and there's the whole ice bath thing, and do I do a recovery warm down, etc. But what about mental skills? Is there anything I can do to help myself there from a recovery perspective?
Well, I think it's really important to reflect effectively, so we can then switch off and actually move on. And as we've talked about, so many of the riders aren't doing this as a full-time job, so it is important to be able to reflect, learn from how the session went, whether it was a training session or a gym session, whatever it is that we were doing, and then actually move forward. So we want to be able to effectively tie a ribbon around that session, get a little bit of closure, have some reflections, and then move on. So we're not dwelling or ruminating on how things went, whether they went really positively or kind of negatively. Certainly the mental skills side can be really helpful for reducing stress, providing a more relaxed state, I guess, through things like mindfulness, breathing activities. I think perhaps the most important one for some is probably changing the way that we think about recovery to actually then enhance our performance. So shifting from, recovery is something that I need like frustratingly need to prioritize to something that is actually a fundamental and really central part of performance, to try to get away from recovery days feeling as though we're not doing anything. We're not doing anything to prepare so that we can prepare tomorrow. Recovery is actually an important part of that whole process, to put ourselves in a position to then train more effectively. So I think that mindset shift can be quite helpful as well.
Yeah, nice. So you talked about reflecting on your performance. Like, we use Strava and it uploads into Training Peaks and different platforms that we use, but actually just writing a comment is a good way to maybe get like a subjective comment about how you felt or how it went or what I'm looking to improve on for next time. Just to get that stuff out of your head is good, rather than just going clip, upload, that's done, or carry on. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a real advantage that some athletes become very good at doing that. One question I like to ask athletes is, tell me about your strengths. And that's something I often ask them early on in kind of work that we do, just for me to get a sense of who they are and what they're good at, but also to test their sense of clarity around what they're good at. And often, I think as New Zealanders, we're not very good at it. As athletes, we're probably not very good either. They're, slightly perfectionistic and type A and really, really high expectations. If you ask them what are your weaknesses, they'll rattle those off really quickly. But if we think about the goal that we want to feel really confident and we don't want to feel excessive doubt, how are we kind of proactively going about doing that in addition to doing the physical training? Because most of us do the physical training, but things like mental reflection around, hey, today's session was really tough, I stuck with it, or I felt really positive, my self-talk was largely supportive and helpful, then all of a sudden we're developing this, again, going back to the currency almost, or this back catalogue of really positive self-talk. And then when we're in the thick of it and it's either it's going well or it's not going well, hopefully we're coming back to all of these things that we've done to put ourselves in position to feel positive and be successful.
Yeah. Well done. That's fantastic. 98% of the field line out for Whaka are just your average athletes who are doing it for themselves, or aren't there to win. We're just going to try and see how good we can do, or just to finish, as we talked about. But what mental skills support's available for your middle of the road athlete who are just trying to do their best? Like, is that something that, like, are you available, or is it actually, do we just need to listen to more podcasts? What would you recommend for people out there?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Unfortunately, there's very little. As a society, there has been a really big shift, and we're really starting to now value like proactive, whether it's proactively going to see a psychologist or a counsellor, or people that are interested in sport and exercise. It's that proactive work in a mental skills space. It's not just the remedial, traditional, like, okay, I've got a problem, I'm going to go see a shrink. It's like, how do I continue to improve? Acknowledging that the mental side is really important. And unfortunately, it's a growing area, but it's still quite a long way behind, going to see a physio or even going to see a nutritionist. So there aren't that many working in like the private practice kind of space. I am doing a little bit of that work. So, I mean, I don't want to do like a shameless plug, but feel free to share my email address in the show notes or in your communication, because I am working a little bit in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff. No, and that's good to know. Like, just I guess as coaches, like if you're rugby coach, netball coach, like us as coaches, helping people out, I guess that's a little bit of what we do. Just have someone else to bounce some ideas off. But it's good to like the great stuff that you've talked about today. I think it just takes things to another level. And how can I get the most out of myself is what it's about. How can I perform the best for the time I've got available and what I'm looking to try and achieve here? So it's some significant things you can do to help your performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have any book recommendations? Because that's always interesting. From around the stuff that we could maybe think about.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a book that I really enjoyed reading called Going Mental in Sport by Professor Gary Hermanson, who was a lecturer at Massey University for a long time. He was the New Zealand Olympic team's sports psychologist for, I think it was 20 years. And it's a really enjoyable read. It strikes a really nice balance between, I guess, like a self-help book and a textbook. He talks a lot about the sports psychology work he did with Olympic athletes, black caps, rowers, and it's broken up into chapters where you can just kind of read a chapter at a time. Doesn't have too many references, so it's actually quite a nice. It feels somewhat academic, but also quite enjoyable to read.
Quite readable.
Yeah, that's a great one. If listeners are interested in a more entertaining, kind of sometimes tough read, Andre Agassi's book is excellent. That's a really great example of someone who achieved the highest levels of performance and success, and had quite a, I didn't know at the time before I read it, but quite a complex relationship with his father, who was his coach, and also the sport in general. So that's a really interesting read.
Yeah,
a lot of psychology in there.
Yeah, well done, Warwick. Nice work. Have you got anything on the cards? What's next for you?
At the moment, what was that? Sorry.
You talked about your marathon that you did a year or two ago. What's next on the cards?
Yeah, I actually, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have anything on the calendar at the moment. So I have been thinking recently about finding a marathon to do. I'd like to pick a half and then a full marathon to do. And I have been meaning to get out on the track as well. I'm at that age now where I'm thinking I don't want to leave it too long, but I've been doing a little bit of track training in recent times, and it makes you feel like an athlete. I'm sure I don't look like one, but you feel fast on a track. So I quite like the idea of training up to do maybe a little track this coming season, maybe try and do a fast 5K or 1500 or something a little bit different.
Yeah, good for you. So getting into a bit of running. Is there anything else to finish up? Any final comments on what we've talked about today?
I think ultimately for the listeners, for the riders who have signed up, to make sure you enjoy the whole experience, as we've talked about, the whole journey, not just race day. Try to enjoy the preparation, the nerves, the stress that comes with it. And that's something that I will encourage athletes at all levels, whether it's youth right through to Olympic level. And I want to be really clear there that I don't mean enjoy it and don't take it seriously, because it doesn't matter. I mean really pursue your goals, kind of go after it, but enjoy the doubt, the excitement, the connection, the anxiousness. Because actually it's a bit of a coincidence, but I have been talking to some retired athletes recently, and one of the things that is really commonly reported that they miss is they miss the nerves, they miss the anxiety that comes with it. And that's something that is really hard to replicate in other environments. Even when you go on and work successfully in other areas, they miss the pre-game nerves, they miss the pre-race nerves, and the stress and the preparation and the intensity of being in the moment. So when I say enjoy it, it's not all rainbows and butterflies, but it's really trying to embrace and find deep meaning in that whole journey.
Soak it up, because for those people, like for us and for those people that have done that, it matters, doesn't it? It matters more than anything in the world right in that moment. So really soak that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good job. Well done. Thank you very much for your time, Warwick, and all the best for your next adventure. And thank you very much for your insights today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Had a blast.
Good job. Well done. Thank you. And just like that, Warwick Wood, I hope you had your pen and pencil ready. It might be one of those podcasts that you go back and actually re-listen to, some absolute gold nuggets there that I will be able to use, but hopefully you get a bit of value out of that as well, and hopefully help you nail that performance so you can get to the start line, embrace it, and go and enjoy your event. Right, let's move forward for our next chat. So this is with Emma Bateup. As I mentioned at the top of the show, she was the only female finisher in the Whaka 100 miler. So this is a very, very honest event. It's made so there are going to be people that aren't going to be able to complete it. So it's not for the faint-hearted. Let's bring on Emma to the show. Here with Emma Bateup. Emma, the only female finisher of the Whaka miler last year. That's a pretty massive achievement. Emma, how long were you on your bike for to get around that Whaka miler course?
I think it was about 14 hours. I only just made some of the cutoffs, which I didn't realize for a while that it was going to be that close, but it was a very long day on the bike. Yeah,
good stuff. We not it's coming up to a year, I guess, 10 months since you did it last time. Based on your experience, are you keen to do it again, or are we still where are we at in terms of the forgotten about how tough that day was?
Straight away I knew I'd be hopefully doing it again this year. A lot to improve on, really, and very motivated to go back, do a bit of a job.
Good stuff. Good on you, Emma. So let's just take a step back. Tell us a bit of background. where is your biking come from to then to be standing on the start line of this Whaka mile? Because it's not just the distance, it's the technical nature of it. The grades of trails that you're riding in the miler is a step harder than the 100K event as well. She's pretty full on. So tell us a bit about your background.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of different types of biking. When I was younger, I raced downhill and enduro and focused on that for a while. Unfortunately, I had probably a few too many head hits, and I've kind of mellowed out a bit. And now I'd like to think I do a bit of everything, but mostly, I guess, an endurance rider. I've done a bit of bike packing and kind of prefer the longer side of things, I guess, where you can slow down and just like enjoy the scenery a bit. And so I guess now the miler would be one of the shortest events that I would focus on in a year.
So are you racing like that bike pack racing sort of style event, are you, over a number of days?
Yeah, so typically I'll do 2 or so main bike packing events a year, and kind of focusing on the 4 to 6 or 7 sort of days I find to be better for me at this point. And yeah, I guess sometimes I'm out there for fun, and sometimes it's more just to get through and try and do it as fast as I can. Yeah.
Good on you. That's awesome. So with your background of it, downhill and that's obviously going to help you for the Whaka and probably right up your alley. So the big endurance type stuff, but add a bit of technical nature, and then that's pretty much a Whaka miler, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we'll get into it, but that side of it definitely helps me if I'm struggling. I'll just come out and enjoy the downhills and cruise up the ups, and most of the time that works. Yeah. Good
stuff. So looking back on last year's performance and leading into that as well, did you ever doubt yourself that you could finish this thing? Or were you always pretty much like, oh yeah, probably, I've pretty much got this? Because you mentioned just before, like, actually it was tighter than I thought it was going to be. Were there any ever doubts in the build-up and the event?
Last year, it was actually a bit of a last minute to enter. And I guess it didn't give me any time to think about doubts. And I obviously also did not really research the course or times that I should be focusing on getting to certain parts of the course by. So it was all a bit rushed. And it wasn't until I think the second time I went through the feed zone that they were like, oh, you should probably pick up the pace a bit, otherwise you're going to miss a cutoff. And so, yeah, it went from just enjoying my day out riding the downhills to having to push myself a little bit more.
It's on. We've got a game on here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So why the Whaka for you? What's the motivation for wanting to do it?
I mean, it's a pretty massive and cool event. You just ride a bunch of fun trails. And it's very hard to find an event with that many trails over that distance. I've done the miler twice and the 100 twice as well. And every time I think of just racing the 100, I remind myself that you have to go a lot faster. But if you do the miler, you can kind of go slower because it's a longer distance. So it's more fun.
It becomes more of a sharp stabby pain the shorter the event gets, but it's still a dull ache, isn't it? What did you do? So you're getting through the first aid station. You need to pick the pace up a bit there. How did that go? How did you go about that? Like, were you just like, right, it's on, I've just got to work hard for the next 15 minutes? We like, right, to the next time I see the aid station in 50 k's time, I've got to go hard. How did you do that for you?
I would say I probably kept the pressure on then for the rest of the race. Last year I'd come into it quite fatigued, which was the reason I originally wasn't going to race. And so at the start of the day, it was knowing that I just had to get through it, and telling myself we can just be out here, enjoy the downhills and cruise the ups. But it was kind of when I got told about the cutoff that I was like, maybe we can't just cruise the ups, and picked up the pace a bit. Yeah.
Good stuff. What strategies did you use to keep grinding it out? I guess we're talking Whaka miler, but obviously in your ultra endurance riding as well, that's I mean, there's times that you just don't want to be there anymore, isn't it? Like, yes, there's fun downhill, but there's a point that it becomes not fun. And I think in any event for anybody, no matter what their distance, everyone's challenging themselves to their own level. How do you get yourself through that? What do you do to keep grinding it out?
Yeah, I mean, a big thing is, especially more so in the ultra distance events, when there's often actually not an easy way of pulling out. It's reminding myself that the only way through is through. Like, you can tell yourself, oh, I'm going to pull out, but where are you going to go? Like, you can't just get someone to pick you up. And the same in the Whaka, there's a lot of sections that to get anywhere, you just have to keep going. And so then in an event where getting to an aid station gives you the opportunity to pull out, often I would tell myself, just get to the aid station. And then if you want to pull out, you pull out. But often getting there, you have a bit of food, kind of having people around pumps you up a bit. And you're like, oh, I'll just keep going. So, yeah, I find that works.
If there was a pull-out station like 5Ks down the track, that would probably be pretty busy, rather than at the aid station, because the vibes are generally pretty good there, rather than riding through and then there's tears afterwards. Why didn't I pull out? I've got to keep going now all the way to the next whatever it is. Yeah. Did you have any support on course at all?
No, I even missed the bag drop. Once again, wasn't very prepared, and realized the night before that I hadn't dropped off bags, so I just carried all the things I needed for the whole day in one bag. That's
hard as nails. Let's just do the whole lot.
It was a lot of gels.
Back to basics. I love it. That's so good. So what did you learn? What would you look to do differently or better next time based on this experience? So you've done the miler twice now, and obviously the course is a bit different to the first time, because this was more and more trails, wasn't it? That it was all in the
Yeah, and it was actually a longer distance as well, which I did not realize. The main thing for me is I get carried away coming into events, and I get really hyped on riding my bike and generally overdo it, and probably just get a bit burnt out, a bit fatigued. And that always seems to happen at the Whaka. Maybe it's just the time of the year. But yeah, a key thing and something I'll be doing this year will be really kind of stepping back as I come into the event, doing a bit more quality work over just countless Ks, and try and just come in a bit fresh, which also gives me a bit more mental energy and reserves. I find that if I've gone really deep training before an event, often there's not many mental reserves left for the actual event itself. So still learning about that, because it's happened recently too. So nice.
A big part of turning up to an event like this is confidence. Obviously, you know you can do it because you've done it before, but do you have a key session that you'll look to do beforehand? I mean, without overcooking you, but give you that confidence to say, yep, I'm ready?
I mean, I haven't lately, because I do so many random missions, I guess. By now I've built the confidence, but I remember before doing my first 100, I went out and I did, it was probably a bit overkill, but I did a 5,000 meter climbing day in Nelson. And yeah, that was kind of like my confidence builder session. Obviously, you don't need to do probably quite that many, but it did give me the confidence to know I could be out climbing for the whole day pretty easily. Yeah,
nice. And a big part of these events also is goal setting, and what do you want to achieve and why. So what are your goals for this year's Whaka?
Oh, I haven't really thought about that yet. I try not to put a time goal on it because of the conditions. It can be super variable. Also with the course being different lengths or different trails included, really kind of cuts into time. My goals this year are mostly just to race and be proud of what I've done. So knowing that I've kind of given it my all is my main goal.
Yeah, and I guess part of tidying up some of those things from last year, like even having your drop bags available and just being smoother through the course, I guess from a pacing perspective is good about making sure that you end up having done your best by making sure that you are smooth through the first section of the course as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, hopefully coming in a bit fresher will give me a bit more to be able to push early on. Because if you start off kind of chilling a bit too much, then you're not really in a race mentality. So I'd like to be in a race mentality for the whole race.
Nice. Yeah, cool. And that race mentality, what does that look like to you? Is that hyped up, get angry, let's push hard? Or is that actually I'm just really aware of what's going on? What sort of frame of mind do you need to be into that race mentality?
Probably quite hyped. Yeah, just kind of going out there, being more aggressive on the climbs. Like I'm not naturally a climber, so I need to push to keep up on the climbs. And I guess in a way it's enjoying it less. So if I'm enjoying it, I'm just out there, I'm cruising, I'm having fun. There's a photo of me doing a wheelie down the hill during the mile last year, which is sick. But probably not the fastest option. And so, kind of deciding before the event whether I want to be enjoying it or I want to be racing and therefore less enjoyable, but probably, going to suit the competitive side of me a bit more.
And that goes back to when you're sitting at the end, beer in hand, that I'm reflecting on, I've done my best today. Doesn't it? That's what that's about. Yeah, it's more maybe less enjoyable at the time, but it's actually more enjoyable afterwards in terms of what you've actually achieved and what you've managed to tick off for yourself.
Yeah, often if I kind of hit it from the enjoyable side, afterwards I'm left with a bit of a, could I have done this better? I wish I'd gone a bit faster, that kind of thing. And so I guess during the event, it's remembering that afterwards you're going to maybe regret it a bit if you don't give it your all. So trying to tell myself that during the event.
Yeah, so that's just being clear of what your objectives are, and making sure that you've sort of sat down and just have a bit of a think about that, of how you're going to approach it, and then that means that you get yourself sorted beforehand. What about like in terms of racing, like you mentioned, I need to sort of have a bit more of that race mentality. The longer an event gets, the smaller moments become that you can actually race, because obviously you can blow yourself out and go too hard. How do you manage that? Because it is good just trying to stick with others, because otherwise you can drift and float along a little bit if you're solo and have big patches by yourself. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's something I'm definitely working on. I've found in some of the ultra events that I've done, the first day, maybe the first 12 hours when there's lots of people around, things like resupplies are always very fast. I'm very focused. And then I get to some of the later days, and if I see someone, because that's a novelty by then, I'll just like ride with them or go their pace. And so it's it's an interesting contrast, something I'm still trying to work on. Like I'm still pretty new to that side of it. But still working on it for sure.
Cool. Good to think of, good to be aware of. And do you have any kind of mantras or self-taught words or anything like that you sort of have in your head, or even a bit of duct tape written on your handlebars? So like, is that part of what you do or think about, just to kind of keep you dialed in?
Yeah, I mean, often in an ultra, the main things I have written to be able to see is eat and drink, because I know that'll keep me happy. It changes every time. Sometimes one of my friends coming into an event will say something. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll write that down. So a bit of I think someone told me YOLO once, so I wrote that down on my bars. So a bit of a go hard because you can. But it kind of changes. One of the mottos for one of the last events I did was the only way through is through. There was really no way of pulling out. Some of the sections were so remote that it was just keep going.
So basically what you're saying is it's just that full commitment, isn't it? And you've got a goal. Let's go and have a good crack at it, and let's go and see what happens.
Yeah. And I mean, often telling yourself you've signed up for this, like you're choosing to do this, you're privileged to be able to do this. Like the way reminding myself that my body lets me do this is pretty cool. And being in that position is cool. And also just reminding myself that of the regret I'll feel if I don't finish it. Yeah.
Yep. No, that's awesome. Well said, Emma. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Some fantastic insights there, and all the best for this year's Whaka, and go and give it heaps.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Talk soon. Cheers. See you, Emma. And just like that, we wrap up the Whaka 100 podcast for 2025's part 1, part 2, and part 3 on training, on nutrition, and on mental skills. Hope you found those very useful and information providing, so you can go out and have an awesome Whaka 100. Go and enjoy riding your bike, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the start line and cheering you across the finish line from Team CP and Z. Over and out. Cheers, team.